The fashion industry is evolving. There's a lot of regulation coming down the pipeline to really ensure that brands are being as conscious as they can be. Consumers are also demanding transparency from brands and asking them what they're doing. And so if you don't have a sustainability strategy or you don't know where to start, you need to watch this video. Let's dive in. The first best practice is to know why you're doing it. This needs to be deep and you need to be intrinsically motivated as to why you're starting your brand sustainability journey. It cannot be just because Gen Z consumers on TikTok are bashing fast fashion brands and you don't want to be bashed, so you need to figure this out. Or it also can't be because your local government is now caring about this and you're worried about regulation and being out of business. Like, those can be triggering factors as to why you start to look into this, but at the end of the day, you need to dig deep and really think about your values and your brand's values and be intrinsically motivated, because sustainability does not happen overnight. It's a continuous journey. It's a continual gradual progress that you're gonna achieve with your brand. And so you need to stick it through. And in order to do that, you need to have a bigger why. And so think about which part of the harmful fashion industry resonates with you to help and solve. And there's so many parts of the fashion industry that are broken, from the harmful materials in our clothing, to the unethical and unfair treatment of garment workers, to the millions and millions and tons of textile waste we send to our landfills every year, not to mention all the water usage, the carbon emissions, and just all the things. So there's a lot of things wrong with the fashion industry. Just pick whatever resonates the most with you and use that as your why, and use that as your fuel as to why you want to do this and why you want to try to help to transform the harmful fashion industry. The next best practice is to pick and choose your sustainability priorities. I always tell our clients to choose 1 to 2 priorities, and that way they can really focus on them and knock them out of the park. If you're a brand that's just starting out, or even if you're a medium-sized brand with a good amount of revenue, you still have limited time, limited energy, limited budget, and limited resources. And so if you try to tackle the entire fashion industry's wrongdoings with just your brand, you're gonna be very overwhelmed very quickly. And more often than not, we find that people get paralyzed because there's so many different things and so many things to think about. And so it's really, really helpful if you just narrow it down to 1 to 2 things that you're gonna focus on with your brand. And the disclaimer here is that that does not let you off the hook for all the other things, or that doesn't mean that you're not gonna do things in the other areas. You're still gonna be at least average or above average, because you're now trying to become a slow fashion brand or a sustainable fashion brand. But just for those 1 to 2 priorities that you've chosen, you're gonna knock it out of the park. And if you think about it, if you have limited time, energy, and budgets, if you really divest all of that time and that focus on those 1 to 2 things, that's when you can really make that impact. Whereas if you try to do a little bit of everything, that's when you're not going to have that traction. And so it's really, really important to focus and narrow down. In terms of choosing your priorities, it's really about what resonates with you, what your values are, and of course what resonates with your brand and your brand's values. And last but not least, think about your target ideal customer as well. What do you think they care about? What would really resonate with them? Is it potentially not using materials with a lot of water, because water conservation is really, really important to your ideal customer, to your brand, and also to you? Or is it not using plastics, because that is something that's important to you, your brand, and your ideal customer? Whatever it is, dig deep, because again, it cannot be the fact that you just want to do this to meet regulation or please a certain target demographic. It's really important that you dig deep and really think about the impact that you want to make with your brand. The next best practice is to develop your targets and roadmap. Once you know why you're doing this and you figured out your priorities, the next step is to set your goals and really break down how you're going to get there. The key here is to set realistic yet also ambitious goals, because we want to make sure that it pushes you, it challenges you, but at the same time, you want to make sure they're not sky high and absurd, right? Because at the end of the day, we don't need you to make 2030, 2050, 2060 goals when you know deep down you're not going to make it. Because the amount of goals I have seen brands put out that are just really, really, really ambitious, and I'm always just like, are you actually going to achieve that, And it's just not helpful, because when brands actually get to those years and they haven't achieved it, they just brush it under the rug and then just set the same types of targets and just add another 10 years down the line. And that's not what we need. We really need you to actually put pen to paper, set your targets, work backwards in a 6-month, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10 year roadmap to really figure out how you're going to get there. And also use that as a communication tool for your team, so that your team understands and also your customers understand where you're going as well. And that can really help you in combating greenwashing if you can share, hey, this is what we're aiming for, this is how we're going to get there, this is when we're going to get there, and then everyone will be involved in your journey and they can support you and they can keep you accountable. If you're getting a lot out of this video, you're going to love my additional free sustainability resources. You can snag them at recloseted.com/sustainability. But essentially, on that page, there is a free ebook. In this ebook, it will detail everything I covered in this video. So if you're more of a visual person, you can check that out. There's also exercises in there for you as well. And then the other thing on that page is my free sustainability masterclass. This will help you set up your sustainability strategy. We go a bit deeper. So make sure you check out these two resources. The link again is recloseted.com/sustainability. Now let's dive back into the video. The next best practice is to ensure that you have internal buy-in. This is crucial because you cannot be the only one at the company spearheading change, because that's just going to be an uphill battle for you. So make sure yourself and everyone else at the brand and at the company is bought in. And if it's just you and your brand right now and you're just starting out, then make sure you're obviously bought in as well. How you can do that is really share the sustainability why. So why this is important, why it's important that people get on board and they understand. Additionally, you want to be sharing the sustainability priorities because these are your North Star, and now every single business decision you make needs to go through these priorities. It's like a filtering system. And then of course, you want to share your targets and your roadmap. So everyone understands what the goals are and how and when you will get there. So make sure you do that so you have internal buy-in and this is not an uphill battle for you. Another best practice is to design intentionally. Do not produce product just for the sake of making product. It needs to solve a problem for your ideal customer. So instead of trying to capture trends or really trying to jump on the bandwagon for a certain design, like really think about longevity. And if people are going to wear this for seasons and seasons and years to come, that is so crucial. And that is such low-hanging fruit. Like really change the design philosophy at your company to really become more intentional. And what I also like to say too is you can design and make the most beautiful garment out of the most sustainable material at the best factory in the world. But if people don't wear it and they don't use it and it's pretty much going to go straight to the landfill, then you've just made really sustainable junk. Think about it, right? And so that's not what we want to do. So you need to be so intentional with your designs and ensure that every single thing you make is going to be used and going to be worn. And along the same lines, the next best practice is to be so selective with your materials. Materials have such a big impact on a brand's sustainability, and so you really want to make sure that you think about the water usage, the carbon emissions, if this is going to be synthetic and like last in the landfill for years and years and years. Think about why you're choosing certain materials, be very selective with it, ensure it's high quality, and ensure it's the best thing you can get for your target customer because they're going to be wearing it for hours and hours and days on end. And so really ensure that you are selective with the materials you use. And then that also leads into the next best practice, which is also being selective with your manufacturers and really ensure that you really find ethical manufacturers that treat their garment workers fairly. And if you want tips on how to source sustainable materials, check out this video. And if you want tips on how to source sustainable and ethical manufacturers, check out this video. There's a lot of resources on this channel, so there's really no excuse not to do your part. Another best practice is just to simply be transparent and share. With a lot of brands that are trying to be more sustainable, they are afraid of sharing because they don't want to get backlash or they don't want consumers to question them and ask them, why are you doing this and why are you doing that? And so they think it's better just to stay silent. But I think that does the entire fashion industry a disservice because if people are too afraid to share what they're doing and too afraid to share progress, that doesn't educate the consumer and doesn't inform them. And on the same side, it also just allows fast fashion brands that are greenwashing just to continue to greenwash. And so it's really important that you share your sustainability priorities, you share your targets and your roadmap, and just really be vulnerable and candid with your audience and your customers around your journey because at the end of the day, you're not going to be perfect. That's okay. We discussed this is a journey that happens and you're just going to continuously try to improve. And the other thing that's really beautiful about being transparent and sharing is that it involves your ideal customer, and then that way they know why you're making these choices, they feel involved in your journey, and they want to support you. And so it's really, really important. And the other thing I will say as well is that you should also welcome questions from customers, because essentially if they're asking you these questions and you can answer them and you can show them the metrics and the targets and all your progress, that's amazing. But they're also going to be asking these same questions to other brands. And if they haven't figured out their strategy, then maybe that's the kick in the butt they need to really get going. So as an industry, we need to raise the bar, and so do not be afraid to be transparent and share your progress. If you got a lot out of this video, friendly reminder to take advantage of our free sustainability resources. We have an ebook and we have a masterclass, and you can get both of them at recloseted.com/sustainability. Thank you for watching this video, and if you loved it, make sure you check out my other video on setting up your sustainability strategy as well. Together, let's transform the harmful fashion industry.